All right, let's see if we can get started. I think we'll have some stragglers coming in. I fully intend to go around and give everyone a chance to introduce themselves, but I think I'll wait a bit longer to make sure those that are coming are going to be here and be seated. So first off, welcome to the All Board Summit. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Tom Hall, your town manager. I'm in my 16th year as manager, and during that time, I've had the great occasion of working with many of you. There are some new faces to me here tonight, but I'm very pleased to be with you tonight and gaining such a auspicious group, I'll say. Um, in my position, I have a sense of the really good work that many of the committees are doing. And we've had the great fortune of having, I think, a great professional staff, many of whom are helping support your work. And that's a large part of the way I find out what's going on. But we really think it's a great idea to pull all of you together and for you to kind of cross-pollinate a bit and hear a bit more about the work of other committees. And that's really the basis in the thought process behind this. Scarborough is tremendously blessed with tremendously talented volunteers, all of you. I continue to be amazed by the expertise and the talent in this town, from the elected officials, certainly all the volunteers on the standing and advisory committees. It's all of you that do the very important and hard work of the town. And it's really important that we do take a moment to pause and appreciate and reflect on the work we're doing and what we're doing it. From my perspective, there's a couple of key ingredients, I think, to the success that we're starting to see. We really kind of come into our stride, I'll say, in terms of really working at all levels toward common goals. And it has to do with strong members, first and foremost, all of you. I see Councilor Don Handel in the back here. One of his legacies will certainly be the tireless work he's done in the Appointments Committee. I think in the 6 years he's been on council, he's been a member of that committee and has really worked so very, very hard to make sure, first of all, the committees are fully populated, but also very thoughtfully done. And I think the results certainly show that. Thank you, Don. The other thing is staff support. Not too long ago, just a couple of the committees were supported by staff. And at this point, all the major committees, I think, do have a level of staff support. I think that's so important. The council's also helped in part through the staff support, I suppose, provide some routine and function to the committee. All too often you meet monthly and kind of come and go and not much happened in between. The council actually regularized that process. You have printed agendas and minutes and work is done between meetings. All of that matters in terms of productivity and results. Town council involvement. Again, historically, there were council liaisons, but sporadically they'd show up and attend. Now I think it seems almost mandatory. And I think you can appreciate the sort of time and effort council members put in at committee level, not to mention all the council responsibilities. Also having clear goals. I think council has gotten better in terms of articulating what they see as priorities, and through staff and through committee leadership, we're able to kind of bring that down at committee level and all be working in that same common direction. And lastly, I think we really should be proud of some of the important investments we've been able to make that help support the good work you're doing. We've just completed a recreation master parks and facilities plan, Todd, that's helping support a couple of different committees in their efforts. We're on the doorstep of starting a comprehensive townwide transportation study that's going to, I think, have tremendous benefits when it comes in hand. And just last night, with the adoption of the budget, the council funded an open spaces conservation plan and a vulnerability study. Those two will also, I think, be very helpful going forward. I just wanted to divert for a second and just give you the history of this summit. Many of you, some of you, I suspect, were involved with the first one and probably all the ones in between, but many of you weren't. So the Vision Committee, which is a joint effort on the part of the Scarborough Community Chamber and SEDCO, formed, I believe, in the first rendition to implement the 2006 plan and kind of the economic development aspects of that plan. And sure enough, I think in 2011, they came forward and the council adopted an economic development vision that this vision committee created. And then they stuck together, and the first all board summit was in 2014. There have been 5 in total. This will be the 6th. So we've not been exactly consistent year to year, but we strive to. And in the past, we've held them at Wentworth School 3 times and then at Martin's Point Community Room a couple of times. And here we are in the gymnasium at the hub. I should just take a moment just to recognize the members of the Vision Committee who are here this evening, I think. First and foremost, Lori Warshaw. Lori, you've been here and involved since the very beginning, so appreciate that. Kevin Freeman, many of you know, I don't think he's here tonight. Stephen Nelson. Karen McLeod. Nancy Kroll. There's Nancy. And all the work's been supported by Karen through the years as well. So it's a small group, but mighty in their efforts. Lastly, in terms of past accomplishments, the sort of things that have come out of this process in the past have been the creation of a community calendar. This is something that still is supported and maintained by SEDCO. There's always been conversation around better and enhanced communication systems. The first e-newsletter came out of these conversations, and it's matured now into full-time staff at Town Hall and more regular installments. There was also a lot of interest in having town council involvement at the committee level. I think we can check that box. And then for 2 years, we used this forum to get input for the comprehensive plan. The last couple of times we've convened. So this year we have slightly different objectives. First and foremost, we want to recognize the power of community engagement, getting us all together. We're looking to facilitate coordination between groups, identify common goals and themes, and identify ways to support each other's work. When we get into the session, we'll be soliciting input from each of the committees, and I'll get into some of the particular instructions when we get to that point. But generally, we're looking for you to report on 2 things. Generally, what's your work plan for the year? What are you looking at over the next 12 months or so? And then more specifically, there are 3 priority policy areas that really come from the town council goals. And at this point, I'd like to invite Town Council Chair John Anderson to provide a couple comments on council goals this year, and perhaps the ones that we could chat about tonight.
Thank you, Tom. And thank you to the Vision Committee for putting this event together for everybody. And thank you to all the committee members for coming tonight. I know you guys already are committed to volunteer for a lot of things for this community. So to come tonight and be part of this conversation is very much appreciated. So this year we did set out on a very ambitious package of goals. You know, one of the pieces of feedback I always get out there by my wife, and she's always like, "You're trying to do too much. You're trying to do too much." And I was like, well, we only have so much time, and with the energy of this group and all these people, it's like really exciting to me that we can harness this to really achieve a lot of the things that we've laid out, because we cannot do this as a town or as a council without the volunteers and the residents participating and helping get these things done. And I'm proud that so far this year we've made some significant progress, but we still have some ways to go. You know, we just to quickly talk about some of our goal areas. Budget was one, which again, I don't think is in scope for this today, but we did pass the budget yesterday, which is a great achievement. And as Tom mentioned, a continued investment in a lot of policy areas that we want to see improvements within the community. Housing choice and homelessness. So really last year, we saw, especially with things like the Comfort Inn, some challenges that really kind of brought the homelessness epidemic in our backyard. And again, I think that's been years in the making, but it was definitely accelerated because of the pandemic. And, you know, as a town, we struggle with thinking about how do we address that? But it's not just a Scarborough challenge, it's really a regional statewide challenge. And so we committed as a council that we need to find ways to help address that, either unilaterally or in partnership with other agencies. So some things that we've done this year is we did a pledge to support Safe in Maine, which is a project run by an organization called GPCOG to try and find transitional homes for asylum seekers. So we're committed to $50,000 to support that effort. And again, so we're making little progress on this one, but you know, we've only really scratched the surface, and we need help and ideas and thoughts on, you know, knowing that this problem isn't going to go away. How can we do our part and identify the unique things in Scarborough that we need to do to address that? We did make investments in the budget to add another social services navigator to help with general assistance. Again, last year was the first year on council that we actually had to have a fair housing meeting to address issues with general assistance and the population. And so this is the challenge that we have to address. And again, we've made some progress this year, but there's significantly more progress to make that we're hoping to get ideas from the groups tonight. Housing Alliance is here, so I'm sure this table will have some really good ideas, but it's of course things that other groups can help think about. Growth management. We also had a meeting yesterday on our rate of growth ordinance. It was a workshop. Part of that will help with some housing challenges. Again, in that we are committed, I think, as a council to find ways to expand diversity in housing choice and options. One of the challenges is, again, at the same time, we're getting pressure from the community around the pace of growth. And so trying to manage both of those elements of ensuring we have affordable housing and options while being respectful of the growth rate to make sure the town can comfortably absorb those changes is a challenge and something we're trying to work through. One element we are proposing and we'll vote on at our next meeting is allowing for housing pool for up to 100 units for affordable and workforce deed restricted options that are really based on income qualifications to try and expand and create options or incentives for private development, hopefully want to invest in those types of projects if they want to develop in Scarborough. So sustainability, conservation, and climate change. I'm really proud, and I have to give Councillor Shoup, who's here, some credit to this, and also Councillor Katarina, because this has been an area of passion, I think, of both of theirs. And as a council, at least for the 3 years I've been on, we've done things, we've done stuff, but it was never deliberate. And I think this is the first time we actually, at least in my tenure, have put a commitment to that area. Again, conservation is super important. And, we've had a lot of work with our Conservation Commission this year to try and figure out how do we achieve our 30 by 30 goal, which is essentially trying to conserve up to 30% of our developable land by 2030. So we did a resolution last night committing to that. And I think we have more questions about how do we get there. And, one of the great things that Councillor Katarina did last night was share potential ad hoc committee that we might want to form that really kind of a lot of the different committees here were represented in that list. So this is really a challenge that I think many committees can help us think through. How do we get there? It's about 4,000 acres that we would need to conserve between now and 2030. Again, we kind of set a moonshot target, knowing that that's going to be a challenge to get there. But I think with some creativity and ingenuity by the community, I think we can at least make significant progress to that. Additionally, climate change. This is one area, as Tom mentioned, with our vulnerability assessment, where we know it's a problem, we know we need to address it. Other communities have kind of started to lead the way in South Portland and in Portland. So we're a little bit behind there, but I think we can catch up. And I think given our proximity, or given the marsh and the beaches that surround us, I think for us, it's definitely really important that we as a community figure out how do we address the impacts of climate change in our neighborhoods and really make sure that we're prepared for the future. Traffic and transportation. Since I've been on the council and in our survey last year, traffic and transportation continues to be the #1 issue that the public brings forward to us as concerns. Being on the council and being on the transportation committee, which I miss you guys, I was on it for 2 years and I'm not on it this year. I think many of you are here. There's so much that the town does to try and address that. And there's so much that's planned to get done. Unfortunately, it's kind of a lagging issue where we have so many projects in the pipeline, so many plans to address with the transportation study. We want to make sure that the public really understands all the work that the town is doing, as well as with our partners in development and others who are responsible for making a lot of changes as well, to make sure that we can improve traffic flow and safety within our community. So that's super important. And I know the Transportation Committee especially has been working really, really hard on that. And I think a lot of what they do and a lot of what they talk about also tie into some of the other committees like the rec advisory board and their plan about how do you get people from point A to point B so that they can enjoy our amenities and have good parking and trail systems to get around town. So that's all part of transportation. So again, that's such a big area that I'm proud of the progress we're making, but there's still a way to go. And then lastly, public engagement and communication. That's a goal for the council to make sure we're engaging. And I view this group and your committees as an extension of that, because you guys are just as close to some of the big challenges as we are. So I appreciate the work you do, and also the work you do probably with your friends and family when you're talking about the stuff you're doing and getting them excited and engaged of the improvements that are coming. So I hope, all of you continue to stay engaged, stay involved. And again, I really appreciate your attendance tonight. And again, if you have any questions, happy to answer. I'm here, Councilor Katarina, Councilor Shute, if you want to raise your hand, and Councilor Hamill. So, we're all here to chime in, offer thoughts, and hear from you guys as well. Next council meeting, also, we're holding a workshop to revisit our goals. So one of the things that I kind of view tonight is this is a great group of involved, engaged, and informed residents who I think I want to hear from you tonight in terms of, are these the right goals? What could we do differently? What could we do better? We still have 5 more months of this council, and I want to make sure the next 5 months we're very focused and not only as a council, but with the committees to deliver more improvements that we can to make Scarborough great. So thank you all.
Thanks, John. What's the old adage, never give a politician a microphone? John is not a politician, he's just a wealth of knowledge, if you can tell, and he's very passionate about all of these subject areas. So we've taken about a half an hour of your time. We have 90 minutes left, which I think is adequate. We have 18 of the 20 committees, that's between the standing and advisory committee. That's a really good representation, obviously. And the 2 that aren't represented are really kind of committees that don't meet and haven't met because of their purpose and subject matter. You might have noticed that we very purposely assigned you tables. We didn't want this to turn into a 7th grade dance where everyone congregated with those that they knew. So we've purposely separated you, and we're trying to strategically place counselors. And we do have staff in the back that we've got seats. So if you want to come up and be part of the conversation, that's perfectly fine too. My one ask of you tonight is that you make the effort to introduce yourself to someone you don't know. I think that should be fairly easy, and perhaps you've already accomplished that, but please make that effort before we leave. So without further ado, I'd like to take a moment and just go around and have everyone introduce themselves. And if you could just explain your affiliation, which committee you're here representing. So let's go from the back table. Art, you want to start?
Art Dillon, representing the Community Service Recreation Advisory Committee and Chamber.
Can everyone hear? Should we pass the mic? You need no?
Maybe.
So we can do this.
You gave him a mic now.
He's handing it on.
Hey everybody, it's Steve Nelson, and I'm with the Vision Committee, Scarborough Chamber of Commerce.
Jessica started, Conservation Committee and Arts and Conserving Municipal.
I'm gonna use my teacher's voice. Rachel Hendrickson, I'm chair of the planning board. I'm on the Parks and Conservation Land Board, and I'm the liaison from the planning board to the long range planning committee.
Good life, Rachel. Art Gates, long range planning and coastal waters and harbor. Please thank you.
Nick Rico, well, sanitary district, I think I've been on the board for 23 years.
Greg Robinson, I'm on the transportation committee.
Christine Snow, I'm a new member of ZBA. I've been there about a year and I'm vice chair.
Really, I'm on the Wood and liaison to the transportation committee.
John Krasny, current chair of Central Scarborough.
Judy Johnson, this is my second term on the library board.
Shelley Stevenson, I'm on the zoning board of appeals.
The board, the zoning board of appeals, as well as the board like assessment review.
Brian Shumway, the chair of the Scarborough Housing Alliance.
I don't need this either, because it's high school. G. Catherine, town council, and I think I've been a liaison with every committee. It's on my Susan Powell, the board of trustees of Scarborough.
Nancy Kroll, I'm a member of the Vision Committee and also the director of public library.
Noah Agron, I'm chair of the Shellfish Conservation Division.
Committee and also long range planning committee.
My name is Rick Schneider, I'm on the Long Range Planning Committee and also on the SECO. I also sit on the Land Trust Board. I don't think Land Trust is considered a committee, but we have such a great relationship with the town that we like to think it's one of them.
Yes.
Dr. Barkley, member of the Transportation Committee. Leroy Crockett, Housing Alliance, Scarborough Community Chamber, and Scarborough Bylaw.
Good evening, I'm Alan Paul. I am on SEDCO, Scarborough Economic Development Corp. I am also on the Long Range Planning Committee as chair. I am currently on the Transportation Committee for a limited period of time now. And I have 22 days left on the Board of Trustees for the library.
I'm Critical Care Committee, I'm on the Board of Assessment Review. I'm also a member of the Board of Education.
And so staff is here, we'll just go quickly down the line.
Jamie Fish, Sustainability Coordinator. Hi, I'm Mom Spirit, the Planning Director.
I am Jen Day, I'm the director of IT.
Norman Kilda, I'm the finance director. Nick Cloutier, the tax assessor.
Tom Suda, Director of Community Services.
Angela Blanchard, Town Engineer.
Brian Longstaff, in the planning department, I am the zoning administrator.
And we're not gonna let you go.
Karen Martin, I'm the Executive Director of Scarborough Economic Development Corporation. Scarborough Development Corporation.
Perfect, thank you. I think that was worth taking a few moments. So I believe we have a representative from each committee, each of the 18 here tonight. I think I have the spokesperson. So the way this is going to work, we're going to give each of you 3 minutes. So this is kind of Scarborough speed dating, we'll call it. And again, the task is really to tell us in a few short words and thoughts, what's your work plan? What are you guys working on right now? And ideally, I think council members and staff would love to hear how that work relates to one or more of the goals of council. That would be really helpful.
Just a point of order. Some folks may not know that they're the spokesperson, but if you're the only person. But we want to give you a chance to do that. And one other substitution, Rick Meinke is not able to be here, so Jamie has often stepped in.
Terrific. Yeah. So during the session, Karen is going to be taking kind of real-time notes, and our hope, if she's successful, is, and we have time, is maybe a quick little summary of what we've heard this evening. We'd like to end with. And we'd love to have a little time for socialization after, but we respect your precious time, and we'll see how that ends up.
Sorry. FYI, it is being recorded tonight, so we're not broadcasting live, but we are recording, so we'll post it so that.
I was a bit unnerved, although I don't think it was enabled. Karen said that one of the participants on the Zoom meeting was an AI bot that was going to be transcribing this session, which didn't sound right. Thankfully, that was not accomplished. So let's get started. In no particular order, I'm just going to go down through the list as it was presented to me. So do we have Alex Marshall on behalf of the Community Services?
Alex, not able to join us tonight. Our chair is here.
Good.
So, we've been working on, some of our own goals, which kind of coincided with, the town council's goals. We're going to be, presenting at a workshop, next month. Our recommendations about the master plan and review. Our top goals and observations and recommendations to the board. And, surprised by us, top of the list is community center. So hopefully that'll go well. And that's about it. We've been working hard the last few months on a short time frame. Thank you.
Thank you, Art. Alan, I have you on the long range plan.
Thank you. I'll talk about what we're going to be doing for the next 12 months, hopefully only 12 months. We are currently involved with trying to combine our site ordinance 405B in conjunction with the design standards document that was developed in the early 2000s. So we're taking those two documents, eliminating any of the items that are confusing, if you will, or actually were contradicting one another. And the intent is when we're done, we will simplify the whole site ordinance into one document, easier to read, friendlier to the contracting community, the developers, etc. And that's our primary goal, and it will take us most likely the next 12 months to try to complete that. I'd like to take 1 second, or no, a few more than that, but to tell you about something that the Long Range Planning Committee can officially say that as of last night. Thank you to the town councilors. We can put to rest the comprehensive plan process. I can tell you that if my math is anyway made correct, we've been working on that for roughly 96 months. We started in 2016. It was physically submitted, I believe, to the state back in 2021. And through the processes that we've gone through back and forth with the state, we finally got to a point where with a small amendment to the plan, and the councilors approved it last night. That is done. Planning only. Now the real work begins. We've got to get to it.
Good. Thank you, Alan. Okay. John, would you speak on behalf of Setco?
Thank you. Yeah. Hi, everybody. Setco right now is comprised of 9 volunteers, lenders, people in construction. We have small business owners. And while we are always happy to provide feedback and advise on specific issues that come to us, most recently we did on the rate of growth ordinance. This year, we've been able to take a step back a little bit and put some time into strategic planning. So I'd say middle to late last year, we had a retreat with a gentleman named Ted Darling, who is from Ethos Marketing. We met with him in the new town safety building, and really kind of dove into what Setco's priorities are, and especially how they relate to the town's priorities, the comprehensive plan. We kind of came up with priorities such as, what kind of industry do we want to attract to Scarborough, and what sort of resources we want to provide to small businesses that want to come to Scarborough. The first item, some of the items we then have moved on to, after developing the list, we now have moved on to how we're going to measure what we do, and there's ways to measure results other than the cold hard numbers. So we're really kind of working on that. Another sort of exciting project is, again, was one is what sort of resources that we want to provide to small businesses. And one of the priorities was to create a small business resource hub. And initially that was going to be sort of more an online thing, but a couple of our members, just because we have people that really want to help and really want to donate their time, a couple of our members who happen to be small business owners who have been through the process of starting a business in Scarborough had said that in addition to having the online resource center, they want to almost be ambassadors to new businesses looking to come here, and they've offered to meet with them and really put a face on coming to Scarborough and what's involved. So again, it's been a year we've been able to kind of focus on strategic planning, which would be nice. And I can't say anything without thanking Karen and Magda for all they do. They do everything and they do the work of, I think, 20 people. So thank you to them.
Thank you, John. Who's here on behalf of the Transportation Committee?
Right, Rob.
Greg.
So, I think it was previously mentioned, town council agreed to fund the townwide transportation study, the end of 2022. It's been nearly 20 years since the last transportation study, and over that time, there's been significant changes at the town, and just how the town views approaches transportation traffic. In the study, there are a few things that we hope to highlight. One of the things is a pedestrian bike byway map. And in this, we would identify safe routes, basically transport yourself from point to point, different destinations safely. That could be town hall, go shopping, restaurants, things like that. Also identifying hotspots in the town. This is different, locations for zoning, mobility, access management. Also developing a Higas Parkway master plan. Kind of see that Higas Parkway entryway to the town is, the first thing people see when they come in off the highway. And as of it stands right now, it's describe it. A limited access highway corridor and transforming that into, more of a complete streets model. Another thing we're working on is the bike and byway subcommittee, similar to what I was speaking on earlier, just further detail outlining maps and ways we can move throughout the town safely as on bikes. I think one of the mottos that we use is you bike with your child, and there's a lot of roads in Scarborough where the answer is probably no. So just improving on that. Then the last thing I'll mention is some past and ongoing initiatives. We've spent a lot of time talking and with some success implementing a plan for bike racks, municipal facilities. If you're biking to anywhere in town, if you don't have somewhere to park your bike safely, it's just a deterrent. Adaptive traffic signal systems along major corridors. Hopefully some people have seen some improvements on how the way the traffic flows. Complete streets policy. I'm sure you've heard the term, hopefully. Complete streets. Just a simple way to describe it is just looking at the road and depending on where it is, utilizing both multimodal and traffic. That'll look different out in West Scarborough than it would, through Oak Hill, but just looking at each corridor and, doing what makes sense. Yeah,
Thanks, Greg. Greg reminded me as I look at meeting minutes and talk to staff as they prepare for a committee work. The one word that I keep hearing is connectivity, and whether it's for trails, for conservation. That seems to be a theme that runs through a lot of the work that committees are doing. Next, I have board of assessment review. Fraylin, you have anything you'd like to?
Sure. Thank you. The board of assessment review luckily hasn't had a need, which is one of the things for the board, because we haven't had any people challenging their assessments recently. We met, I think, once just to meet each other, and we keep in contact over email. If there's reevaluation as expected, then there likely will be appeals coming, and we're ready to take them on as they come.
Thank you. Conservation, you have Jessica or Kathleen?
So for Conservation Commission, we were very excited last night that council approved the 30 by 30 resolution. And folks familiar with 30 by 30, about some fact sheets about what that is, because conserving 50% of Scarborough's land by 2030 is a good goal. We are not going to accomplish it in 2023. But what we were hoping to do this year is put together the strategy for achieving that 30 by 30 goal. And that includes things like the approved and funded open space plan, which is very, very exciting. Again, similar to transportation, there haven't been one in years, so that's updating. To help prioritize those plans that are best fits and highest priorities for conservation Scarborough. So enacting that open space plan, developing funding sources and other avenues to protect and conserve land in Scarborough, like working with partners, and upgrading ordinances, and integrating conservation planning principles throughout all the processes in Scarborough. And do you want me to talk about? Yes. So that's a little simpler. So Parking Land Conservation Board is reactive to applications for permitting on the land farm. And I'm looking at Rachel, because she's going to correct me. She found the word much longer than myself. So it's reactive. Folks come with a specific parcel. They ask for town funding, which is typically, I'd say, half or less of the acquisition price. And we thoroughly evaluate that application from that parcel to meet the priorities of the community. And I say that because we are currently also reviewing the evaluation process, and we're hoping to wrap that up by the end of the year so that we have an updated and streamlined process for evaluating those applications.
Great. Rachel, would you update us on planning board, please?
Sure. The fascinating thing about the planning board is we actually don't plan. We react in a sense. The planning boards in towns are actually creatures of the state legislature and the state law. We are constituted as quasi-judicial bodies, which means that the only appeal from a negative decision is through superior court. Now that does give us a certain amount of power. If we have somebody who wants to do something that is grammatically against our ordinances. What we do is pull together all of the information that you folks are giving tonight in terms of what's going on, and we judge applications that come before us in terms of their adherence to ordinances, but also their adherence to the spirit of those ordinances. In that if we know that Scarborough is looking at really beefing up transportation, when somebody comes to us with a proposal that's going to impact on transportation, we may be asking them, why, where is this going? How are you going to handle it? What are your future plans? In other words, we're not a rubber stamp that comes before us. We probe, find out from developers what their idea is for the land that they own, how they're going to use it. And we then make judgments in terms of how that fits in with Scarborough's goals and with the ordinances. What we see coming up, due thanks to LD 000, how many zeros? 3, is an awful lot of changes in the site plan reviews. We hold public hearings on those. We get information from the public as to what they think about these proposed changes in ordinances. We add a lot of times information on our experience on how those ordinances would end up being implemented or coming back to us through an applicant. So I have been told by Autumn that we've got something like 15 public hearings coming up shortly about all of those things that are going on and all of the changes that are coming before us. Then we'll start to try, I think, and really work with developers and work with the planning department on changes, because the developers are used to coming to us and thinking, this is the way things work. This is what the ordinance says. And as we see more and more changes, we're really gonna have to start to guide the developers in changing the way they think about what they're doing with Scarborough land. So that's kind of a tough chore to do. It's something that we're gonna be doing over the next year. In terms of specific activities right now, we are seeing an increase in activities at the Downs. Please go online and take a look at the last few planning board meetings, or look at the agendas, look at the material that's attached, and you can see what's coming before us. I can only talk about what's been before us, or what I know is before us and is already in the public record. So let me say that before us at our next meeting is Allagash Brewery. They have submitted their first plan, their sketch plan for a brewery on Market Street, which is comes off of Picus Parkway and will go directly to the Downs. We've also approved at the last planning board meeting a 51 unit housing building, housing disabled families. In other words, families that have a disabled member. 51 units, it's the first of its kind in Maine. It is the first of its kind in New England. We've had a lot of fun activities trying to find out and figure out how to handle parking. Because our ordinances don't really accommodate a building of that sort. We have also taken a look at 2 restaurants coming into the Downs area. A total of 3 buildings in Market and Picus Parkway. A multi-purpose building on the corner of Market and Downs. How Market and Downs are going to intersect. And then an additional 2 apartment buildings. So all of a sudden, everything is coming together into the town center. So those of you who are involved in looking at what the town center could be, we've taken a look at that. And we use what you did as part of our guidance, so that we have a good sense of where the town of Scarborough, where the citizens of Scarborough thought that town center should go, what it should look like. It's gonna be an awful lot of work. We frequently will meet, we meet every 3 weeks, we'll frequently meet now until 10:30, 11:15. We start at 6:30. We will probably be running some additional meetings to get things through. We're very clear that growing season, development season is short here in Maine. And we do want to assist people who want to invest in Maine, in Scarborough, to get their work done. So when the Conservation Commission comes up with a new list of plants, we take a look at it. When Transportation starts talking about bike lanes, we take a look at it. When the Sustainability Committee begins to talk about how can we get solar panels on top of the buildings, we take a look at it. So I really appreciate the work that all the rest of you have done. You inform our decisions, and then we are the people that ensure that all of your decisions and your advice and the ordinances of the town of Scarborough are met, and that what we have is a vibrant community. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. We'll stay close. Marvin, would you be willing to share some thoughts regarding local waters?
Rachel, that sounded like planning to me. And Marvin Gates, I'm the second alternate on coastal waters, been there for, I can't remember, maybe 18 months. I probably shouldn't do this, but I know what I don't know. And we have the council liaison who has, I'm going to pass the microphone to you. We think that's an alternate post to yours.
Don Hammond, on council. So spent a lot of time with the 2 waterfront committees, coastal waters and harbors and a shellfish commission. You know, and I did want to make one quick comment about that, and I think Rachel touched on it, is that, you know, we have different types of committees, and I didn't know this at the beginning, and I was really pleased to find out that commissions have quite a bit of authority And, you know, that is also something that's really dangerous in the hands of politics. So, but both of these committees have tried hard to really embrace the roles. We'll see a little bit about coastal water and harbors. Harbor committee is one harbor, it's multiple waters. Their role is really to help us run and operate and make sure that we maintain a working waterfront at Pine Point. And that we keep our other access to the waters open, you know, not only for recreational purposes, but also for people who work, you know, work the waters, who lobstermen and shellfish harvesters and fishing. We built, the state helped us build a pier down at Pine Point. We're in the process of having that refurbished. As part of that, we were required to operate it under a working waterfront covenant, which has very strict rules in terms of how what the permitted uses are for that particular area. And so there, like with many things, like our beaches and other areas, you know, very popular, not only to our residents, but also to visitors. These are also very important, maintaining them as commercial and operational, as well as recreational resources. Like with many things, Tom used to say that I think it was like the triple header, you know, the holy trinity of being successful and running a town for schools, trash removal, and dogs. I think those are the three. I don't know, maybe you change your but the point here is that I suggest that they also be a fourth one, which is parking, which is very similar. This particular team member, they were trying to explore ways to deal with managing regular parking and trying to balance that with the operations and the demands of folks who work there and need to park their pickup trucks and their trailers, along with folks who are operating the facilities there. So that's the short. Maybe not so happy history and raise some more.
Let's say they want to go and do some chill.
Don, you're back on. All right, so I'm the one I'm chair of the Shellfish Conservation Commission, and you might be wondering, what is that? Well, it's the Conservation Commission with clams. And soft shell plants to be specific. And so we, regarding the council goals, we do discuss conservation more so than the others. We actually have a variety of responsibilities that we have to cover every year. And so I'll go over those now. The first one is we have to make a recommendation to the state regarding how many licenses, plant licenses are appropriate in the town of Scarborough. And this is to prevent underfishing or overfishing the resource. So what we'll do is we'll analyze surveys from the commercial plan license holders. As a commission, we will vote on our recommendation, and then that recommendation goes to the state. But anyway, the state gives it approval. After that, it goes to the town council for approval, and hopefully that causes a big debacle right on the floor. And generally, it does tend to pass. It just doesn't do so quickly, and that's generally after that. The amount of licenses that is voted on and approved will be implemented at the Shellfish Lottery, and that's basically Cody drawing names out of a hat, and it'll really determine how many she gets to draw. The second responsibility that we tend to have, or we do have every year, is we have to put out this memorandum, and it specifies the conservation activities that we have to do every year. And so this involves crab kills, crab trapping, surveys, and spat box deployment. And when I say crab kills or crab trapping, that's the invasive green crabs. You just go out there, kill them, and if you're trapping them, you pull them up and then you kill them. And yeah, so for just this year, we have another goal, and we are amending the Shellfish Conservation Ordinance. And yeah, that's all I have.
No. Lori, would you mind updating us, I guess, vision committee of the chamber? Oh, that's okay.
I am Lori Wortham, the chair of the vision committee. One of the things I would like to think about, the vision committee is we're made up of SEDCO members and chamber members. And so our constituents really are small business owners and of course the people, residents of Scarborough. So what we can really try to do is get people talking. Karen always teases that we really don't do anything, we just get other people to talk. And so we like that. And so it's things like tonight, getting everybody to collaborate. We often have found that many committees are working on the same thing and don't know it. And so it's really important to have nights like tonight to get everybody talking together and meeting each other for the first time. So one of the things that Scarborough, the Vision Committee is looking at is that we are so fortunate here in Scarborough, and I don't live in Scarborough, I'll admit it, but Roger was gonna send me a tax bill just to make me feel good. So one of the things we're looking at is the town is so fortunate in that we have a wonderful, group of just amenities here. You know, it's a great birding area. It's known everywhere, as a great birding area, and canoeing and trails and all of those things. And so, if people are already coming here, how do we get them to stay? How do we get them to eat here? Now we have great restaurants. Spend more money at the hardware store. And so really what we're looking at is how do we get them to stay? So that's going to be our focus. And we're going to have a few initiatives on that. See if we can, collaborate on that and capture that money to stay here in town. So that's what we're actually doing.
Just a little bit about the chamber. We have our annual, it's going to be our 24th season, Concerts in the Park coming up starting June 29th. We're going to introduce hopefully a couple food trucks to help draw people in. We work with lots of community business people and to help sponsor this, to make it a relatively free event. It's free to everyone to come. We are also participating in the Scarborough Memorial Golf Tournament that's going to be later this summer. Hope you all can participate, get a team that drives a lot of scholarship money to graduating seniors. And we just recently awarded, I believe, 6 $1,000 scholarships. So we're busy. We have our annual meeting coming up later this month. Turning over the officers, and there's going to be president-elect. So congratulations. And that's about it right now.
Thank you, Mark. People may not recognize you without your wig. I think you remember the Motor Boogie Affair. You enjoyed it. So can you just update us on sustainability?
Thank you. So sustainability committee for the past 6 or so years has been working on implementing the town's comprehensive energy and sustainability plan, which really outlines priorities that they set to make us more sustainable, more energy efficient. So what they're working on currently is trying to come up with a system or a model for having reserve accounts for sustainability projects. And that could be anything from energy efficiency upgrades in municipal buildings to perhaps a grant or a grant program to help people do energy efficiency upgrades in their homes, and really looking at opportunities related to affordable housing, because while we want buildings that are affordable for people to purchase, they also need to be affordable for them to own and maintain in the long term, and that often requires a little bit more upfront in order to do efficiency and improved insulation and systems that are more efficient and will heat our homes more cheaply, because heating oil is not getting any cheaper these days, as we all know from last winter. The other thing they are working on is helping long-range planning committee and the planning department with the updates to the commercial design standards and site plan review ordinance. Looking at right now lighting recommendations and using their expertise to improve our lighting requirements in Scarborough. So we'll have more efficient lighting, considering dark skies initiatives so that we're not lighting up Scarborough's skyline for no reason. And just identifying other opportunities to make the town more sustainable. And I hope everyone will mark their calendars for October 1st, our very first Sustainable Scarborough Day, working in conjunction with Conservation Commission, Project Grace, and the Public Library to do a community event aimed at educating people about all hosts of topics related to sustainability and conservation. It will be held in conjunction with Scarborough Farmers Market. We'll have opportunities for EV test drives, workshops on various topics like native plants, tax incentives for energy efficiency upgrades through the Inflation Reduction Act, sustainable landscaping, a whole host of things. It'll run the gamut. So more information will be coming out about that in the coming weeks and months.
Great, thanks, Gary. While I'm here, I think Todd's going to give an update on senior advisory board.
Sure. I just apologize for not being able to go sending my senior program. So on the senior advisory board, this committee's had mixed attendance over the last couple of years. COVID's been a real challenge. Sometimes technology is also a challenge and different things. So the people that are on that board are very supportive. We've got a couple of members in that committee. It is supported by a staffer, Cindy, here in our department. And their mission is really to look at our programming offers and try to make sure we're meeting the needs of our population, which is a growing senior population. A lot of the work that the other committees are doing also translate into walkable sidewalks, benches, how people move around, and when it's safe, flat, and level, it makes it good for everybody, right? It's simple strollers, walkers, people balance. So that's the mission of that group. Over the last couple of years, the committee has also transferred into age-friendly Scarborough, partnership with the library. There's been a lot of good work going on over the last couple of years. In the last year, we received a grant and working with a student from the University of Maine, who's been looking at programs. And so over the last 8 months, Humane Center for Aging, I'm reading Cindy's right up here now, so my glasses on. Age Long Community Fellow. During this time, the subcommittee started work to address needs, identify a community survey. They conducted pre-pandemic. They work with the library on a speaker series focusing on aging safely, cybersecurity, emergency preparedness as a topic. They also partnered with the library on a walking program, and they were presenting today at a regional conference about their work, which is pretty exciting and very proud for Scarborough. They're working on a pilot program for dementia inclusion right now. They're working on memory backpacks. So they're kind of looking at all of Scarborough. We're all going to be aging, and how do we make sure people can do that safely in their home, and we're a partner and resource to them. So good work by them.
Thanks, Todd. Nick Rico, on behalf of the Scarborough Sanitary District.
Yes, right after talking about aging. So I've been on the board for about 23 years and currently the chairman. Scarborough Sanitary District collects wastewater from folks who are between the turnpike and the sea. We take your stuff and we try them as a clear effluent and discharge it to the okay. And stuff removed is called sludge. So big things coming up this year. They include a pump station upgrade on Hunting Point at the corner of the Eastern Trail, and there's another one in the plan. The old Snows Cannon, there's a pump station down there. That one is next. So that's the construction plan. There's long-term planning to deal with that four-letter word we call PFAS. And we're long term. And we already heard that there's a problem of removing this stuff from the treatment plant. And when the flow of either the water column or the solids gets interrupted, that thing's happen. So
We fixed it in that our contractor has been given some relief. There's supposedly not getting shipped in Brunswick for a temporary basis until we can go back into the landfill here in Maine. Long term, we're looking at a regional facility that can take our sludge, turn it into something useful, maybe even create energy, reduce the volume, sequester some carbon. Do sustainable things. There's, the water industry basically is we're the original environmentalists. So we're here to keep the beaches safe, public health safe, environment safe. That's what we do. That's everything.
All right, I think I worked myself in this last 10. So who would like to speak after the zoning board? We have 3 members, you will? Thank you.
So I'm David Martin, my 5th year now on the zoning board of appeals. And I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what the zoning board of appeals is about. It's sort of like the planning board. We don't plan, okay, we react. We don't, do anything at all in terms of, trying to structure anything. We respond to requests from the public for appeals of various types. So I'm just going to quickly go through what that means. Well, first of all, like the planning board, we are a quasi-judicial board. And the appeals that we hear can only be appeals to the main judicial Supreme Court. So that's important to understand. We're quasi-judicial. So we meet once a month, and we have a busy schedule typically, normally anywhere from 2 to 4 or 5 new appeals each month. It's very rare that we don't have an appeal in any given month. So there's a lot of activity for sure. Just to go over a couple of other things. Brian Longstaff is our staff support, along with Doreen Price, who's in the planning department, administrative, supporting Brian. And we really thank you for your support. You do a great job. I would also like to state that we are regulated by the various statutes, state and federal, as well as town ordinance. We have to follow those. That's the law. We can't make up law. So that's important to understand. We have to rule based on what the law is. We give public notice to all of our appeal. All of our meetings are in live, anybody can attend, and we're also on YouTube. So we're very open about things. Abutters and people living across the street are notified prior to the appeal. People have the opportunity to come in and state their opinion. The opinions are really evidence. And so we gather evidence when we're here in the field. And I'm going to quickly go through the process for how it works. Applicants are given the opportunity to state how they feel that they qualify for each of the criteria that's required for the particular type of appeal. And just very quickly, the type of appeals include undue hardship, practical difficulty, limited reduction in yard size, and shoreline zoning, and sexual exception on miscellaneous appeals. It's a broad range of different appeals. In addition to zoning appeals, we also hear administrative appeals. That's an interesting one. We recently heard an appeal against our staff rep, Brian Longstaff. He won. So, because he was represented by the town attorney. The people who were represented, who were filing the appeal, were represented by their attorney, and we had our own attorney representing the board. It's a really good process. We have to listen to evidence, and based on that evidence, we then need to establish findings of facts and conclusions of law. Those are written out. We deliberate amongst ourselves. We listen to each other's input regarding the findings of fact. And so we're a quasi-judicial board. That's what we do. I guess the bottom line is that we really don't do anything other than react to the requests that we get from people. And I think there's a misconception as to how can zoning change. It doesn't change. Our state statutes as well as the town the town ordinance really specify what we're allowed to do, especially in terms of, for example, a home business. There are certain home businesses that are permitted in different zones. Yet the important thing though is that the applicant has to show that they meet each of the criteria. For example, how does it affect public safety? How does it affect traffic? How does it affect the character of the neighborhood? There are a lot of different checkpoints that the applicant has to cross off. So we hear all that, we put it all together, we make decisions, and they go on. More often than not, people who come to us do well because they're very well prepared. Some applicants who come before us do it on their own. Others bring in attorneys or contractors or engineers, depending on the complexity of it. Some of the commercial appeals we hear require that level. But, people can do it on their own if they want. A lot of times that means we've got to kind of coach them along. We want to establish a win-win on the zoning board of appeals. We want people to be successful. We help them to be able to get to that. There are times when we can't. And we're very honest with people when we see that they're not prepared. We can request that they consider tabling the request to come back again later when they're better prepared. So we really try to work with applicants and help them to achieve success. So we're not people who just say no, although there's times we have to.
Thank you, David. We'll stay right here. Brian Shumway on behalf of the Housing Alliance.
So the Housing Alliance is really town council's resource to deal with any housing issues in town. We're thought of, I think, as an affordable housing resource, but we also worry and think about workforce housing and just housing in general. Over the next year, we're going to be focused on just a handful of things. First is enhancing and promoting the existing town affordability and workforce housing efforts. So this includes looking at our existing programs, seeing what's working and promoting those things. And also looking at what's not working and trying to tweak those things and improve them. The second element, which touches on sustainability in some ways, is looking for ways to lower the cost of housing for existing homeowners. This may include financing opportunities, tax opportunities, energy consumption opportunities, and partnership opportunities. The third thing that we're interested now in is identifying key metrics to track to understand the shifting housing needs and housing resources throughout town, to really get a better understanding of what our true housing affordability needs are and what our situation is. And finally, we want to continue to nurture our relationships with town council to be the primary resource for them to tap when it seeks to explore issues around affordable and workforce housing. And then finally, we're continually working to build an alliance that represents various stakeholders throughout the housing world, including lenders, brokers, developers, renters, architects, builders, and homeowners. So we're trying to build people within the housing alliance who represent all of those aspects of, the building and housing worlds, both as users of housing and contributors to the industry.
Good. Thanks, Brian. And would you speak on behalf of the library, or what's that? I beg your pardon.
I am on the board of trustees of the Scarborough Public Library. This coming year is going to be a transition for our library. Our fearless leader, Nancy Kroll, has decided to retire on us after 45 years. So we are devastated, of course. But now we formed a transition committee right away and have been working hard on trying to find candidates who will never be able to replace Nancy, but we're doing our best. We have a number of people who we've identified who we are we've already scheduled for first round interviews. We hope to have someone in place. Nancy plans to retire in September, October. We will have somebody in place by then. We're also planning a couple of farewell events, for Nancy's, to celebrate Nancy's tenure. As all of you know, we had an expansion project on the ballot in November that went down in defeat. So we're planning, we've working with the architects that we had on the project, Simon Associates, and we're re-envisioning another vision for our center. Our library. We're revising the plans, and we're also wanting to partner with the community center folks, and Bill Donovan, who's the president of our board, has volunteered to be a member of the community center planning group. So we're envisioning potentially some of the more community-centric uses of our library could be located in the community center. And we also had a very successful fundraising, a start of fundraising for our library, which we would like to continue into the next year. We don't want to lose that opportunity for fundraising. And I might be one of the only people who mentioned the 3 priorities that we were supposed to focus on for our little spiel here, our 3-minute spiel. And the library, as far as housing choices and homelessness, the library is a safe place that is utilized by people who need shelter, information, and resources. We work closely with Project Grace and the police department's social service navigator. For sustainability, conservation, and climate change, the library provides resources and is a model for sustainable practices. These include, we have a pesticide-free lawn, solar panels, an EV charging station, and kilowatt meters for loans. We have other great community or conservation efforts to the library. For public engagement and communications, we assist citizens in researching community issues. We host council workshops in the past year, and our staff provides information for the town through the newsletter as well. So that's it.
Thank you, Susan. And last, certainly not least, I think we're all interested in hearing how the firing range committee goes.
Yes, that's right. It's me. So the firing range has been around like a long time. I believe state law is behind some of it. I have to admit, we were supposed to meet annually and we haven't. And it's my fault, pardon. But that being said, now that we have a new chief, I plan to get together with him. What we do is we just make sure we keep an eye on the gun ranges in town. Believe it or not, this is only one. The one most people are familiar with is Scarborough Fishing Game, and they're fabulous over there. If you've never been over there, I encourage you to come over and visit. It's a great place to walk in the winter because they keep everything plowed. It's beautiful. They conserve a lot of land over there also. And yes, I am a gun owner. Most people look at me and go, you're a little Miss Liberal, but so one of the important things with fire range to make sure it's safe, encourage safe ownership of guns. I'm very pleased that the town council, we passed a recent resolution on making sure people keep their guns safe. Because let's face it, Maine has a long history of hunting. That's all, and I was put on the spot. I didn't know what I was supposed to speak tonight, but there you go. Thank you.
Jimmer, you never failed us. Nice to see. One thing came to mind, someone jogged my memory. The town will be undertaking another community survey. We did one about 2 years ago. That survey has been often cited. I do it myself, and the council through its communication committee really sees the value in doing that frequently. So we're in the process of identifying questions, and I'm sure we'll have to find a way, and I encourage us to find a way to solicit input from committees, and there'll be an opportunity to perhaps probe a little deeper on certain subject matter that is of interest to you. We don't have unlimited opportunity, but I think we have some very strategic opportunity here that we ought to maximize. So stay tuned. We'll work through council staff and town staff and council liaisons to bring that matter to your attention and get your input. So we've worked through all the committees. I think we have a little extra time, but I'd like to open it up for comments from anyone else that hasn't spoken. Maybe it's complimentary to what's already been said. Leroy.
I already mentioned that Scarborough has a golf tournament for Scarborough alumni. It's made up of a bunch of Scarborough alumni that came together to provide scholarships for students. It generally generates $20,000 to $25,000 a year for the one-day event. I would love to have some of you, committee members or town members, come and join us. It's September 17th. It is a Sunday, and it's from 6 to about noon or 1. But it's really important to us to give back to these high school students and seniors as well. So it's a really great cause, and we're just hoping that we can have your report for it as well. Yeah, it's in Willowdale. Yeah, it goes down to West Forest in the morning.
Thank you, everybody. Anyone else have other thoughts on this one here?
Oh, sorry, just a quick follow up to that, to his comment. Is there a way to contribute if you can't make the tournament? Like, is there a way to?
Definitely see me after.
Okay.
Yeah, we'd love that.
So we don't have one committee here today, and it's because it's a school board committee, but I sit on it as the liaison for the council. It's the school building committee. And, just as a council, this is probably our next big boulder that we have to address, which is solving the K-8 strategic solution challenge that's before us. And so, it is one of our capital goals that we focus on, and I think that's going to be where our time and attention is going to be focused a lot over the next coming months. And I think many people here probably have interests or thoughts on things, especially related to the work that you do, that should tie into the school project. We actually, when we formed a subcommittee on sustainability, I think Rick Montague sits on that, and he's been a big voice partnering with that group to figure out how can we bring sustainable solutions into the design. That'll be a big part of that solution. Additionally, traffic, right? No matter where the school would go in town, there would be a traffic challenge. And so that is a big thing that we're trying to figure out based on the location. How do we, keep traffic flow moving in and around the school? And again, I just would encourage people to go to the school website if you haven't been. It's schoolbuildingsolution.org, right? I think that's the shorthand. Just to learn more about the project and where it is in the process. Again, you'll be getting a lot more information over the summertime and into the fall probably about the project.
Really?
You wanted to add anything?
Any other thoughts? At this point, I'm going to turn this over to Karen, who's taking notes.
I will have the notes ready for everyone and send it out via email to everyone that we have email addresses for. And if we don't have your email, we'll send it to your committee liaison to get that out. But it does seem like there's a lot of common activities that folks are doing, and particularly that there's opportunity, I hear, for different committees that might want to either have a joint meeting or talk amongst yourselves. Like I can think of, I'll take economic development because that's the easiest one for me to think about, but talking with Brian and Housing Alliance, I think talking about workforce housing is a very unifying goal for the council, for the Housing Alliance, certainly for SEDCO and working with employers. And I know I heard with sustainability, trying to make the housing more affordable. So it does seem like there's all this synergy that's happening in terms of the various committees. And I think it was really great to hear from, the zoning board of appeals and the planning board, just how their process works, because it's probably different from what some folks think. And so it was really helpful to have that background. But Rachel's talking about part of their job is taking all the work that you guys do and beginning to translate that into whether it's ordinance or whether it's policy or whatever. And it seems like there's some opportunity for us to all work together and make sure we're communicating effectively, working through Autumn as the new planning director, coming up with, I guess you're tired of hearing that you're the new planning director, right? It's going to take at least a couple of more years for that. She's the planning director, not the new planning director. So anyway, it does seem to me there's lots of different opportunity. And I would love to hear if anybody else heard some opportunities of folks that they would, or other groups they'd like to work with. Oh, come on.
One of the things that strikes me, I hear all around a lot of interest in conservation, which is lovely and wonderful. But with my housing hat on, what I immediately think of is the cost of land going up and the impact on housing choice and housing affordability. So it makes me curious about a conversation about unintended consequences of conservation.
Sure. And
I'm sorry. Well, first I was just going to say, I think, as a member of SEDCO, I think would like to and probably find a way to work with any of the committees. I think what we've heard here tonight is that there's a lot of goals that everyone's working towards, common goals. One that kind of really pops out at me though is transportation. I mean, to hear from Tom and John how high transportation is of a concern to residents. When you think of economic development, it tends to bring more people, brings more, so when we're thinking, how can we promote responsible and smart development? I think, what is the traffic implications that go along with that? So I think there's probably a really strong relationship there that could form.
Rachel, and then
I wanted to talk to the person who's talking about bicycles and bicycle trails. We have one of the things that I keep track of in the planning board and my work on Parks and Conservation Land Board is how we do connect trails, whether they're bike trails or pedestrian trails. And it was really interesting to me to find out that you're looking at putting together a map for that. Because in my head, I'm pretty sure that what we have either done or in the master plan stage is a way for people to walk on a trail from Route 14 near the Nunsuck River to Cabela's safely. Because we have managed to connect a lot of the trails through Warren Woods, through the Innovation District, onto the sidewalks in the Downs, now down to Market Street, which is starting to be finalized, and then across Market Street and onto Cabela's. But we're also looking at how to connect to the bicycle trails. So if you folks have been going down Route 1 and seeing a lot of work being done at the Downs, that's new equipment, that's new stoplights that recognize when a bicycle approaches. So that the a bicyclist can cross Route 1 safely to get down to Commerce Drive to reach Eastern Trail. And there are bike trails all through the Downs and around the main intersection. So there's so much going on that we don't know about, but we had a discussion with the planning board on Monday that said, well, how can we tell people how to get from here to there? Because we know on the planning board that the roads are there and the connections are there, but otherwise people don't. So love to work with you. Love to work with you.
Well, and related to that, I think the senior services part of that conversation, so that the trails are accessible. To multi-mode transportation, people in wheelchairs or walkers or strollers. And then as we talk to, the ad hoc committee for the school, are there ways for families to safely walk to school? So I think there's a lot of cross-pollination around transportation and trails and connectivity.
I can think of another, opportunity. Don?
Yeah, on this theme of connectivity, there's also part of the comprehensive plan is a map that shows all our access areas to moorings and that sort of thing. So, I mean, there's CD Landing Road, play pits, there's a bunch of places where people, particularly in the summer months, like be using them, keep a boat or to use kayak or whatever. So that's another thing that popped into mind.
Yeah, and I can think of, the SEPCO working with, the harvesters. And if our mission is to really work with small businesses, I can't think of a more entrepreneurial group of folks, and maybe there's some opportunity there.
Working with the transportation piece and John's comment, finding a way to distinguish between transportation that's passing through Scarborough and transportation that's stopping. So I think that's there's a distinction that matters, I think.
And there was, and Alan, correct me, because we talked about this, something like 75% of the traffic is within Scarborough.
And within Scarborough, yeah, that was a real surprise when we got that piece of data that only 25% of the traffic through Route 1 is actually traffic that's going just through town. So 75% is local.
Has anyone done a study on 114? Because 114 may throw that egg.
I think that's on the Route 1 corridor. A large part of that is the success that we've had through SEDCO and other efforts in having jobs created in town. If you look at some of the census data for commuter, there's more jobs. Certainly, there's more jobs in Scarborough now than ever before.
One of the things that we're looking at, specifically with the subcommittee on transportation with bicycles, is how do we, number one, get businesses to put bike racks in so that both their workers and people who are visiting those places can safely lock up their bikes. But also, how do we get people out of their cars if they're making a trip that's, say, less than 3 miles? How do we get them out of their cars and either on their feet or on a bicycle? Which does several things, gives us a healthier community, but also reduces emissions and the parking issue. I'd rather have bicycles filling up our parking lots than cars. And one of the things that I saw the other day was people organizing what's called a bike bus, gathering kids from various neighborhoods with adults, and you bike to school, but you've got adults taking, say, 20 or 30 kids on bicycle to school that are surrounded by adults. I mean, I think there are a lot of things that we can do here in Scarborough that begin to address our traffic issue. And for the most part, I think, from what I observe, is we've got a rush hour problem more than a real traffic problem. But a good deal of the traffic going to the schools with people driving their kids to school is a big piece of this. So I think that in terms of traffic, we're looking at a whole lot of things, but some kind of interactive map for people so that they can say, okay, I can get to Hannaford, I can get to such and such, I can get here by bicycle. I may have to change my route a little bit. But to your point, Rachel, on trails, there are a lot of informal trails that we don't know about. So one of the things that we're going to have to do is solicit information from people in various neighborhoods. How do you get from them? So that we can begin to collect all that information and identify those places where we've got gaps. And how do we do that? And signage. Share the road. Something as simple as saying there are other people on the road other than cars.
And if I could make a plug for my side of Scarborough, which is on the other side of the turnpike, you take your life in your hands. and go out of your driveway, just about anywhere you live, or when you leave any of the neighborhoods there, is that as a town, if we could just remember that it would be, I'd love to have a trail that I could bike to, well, Shaw's and will soon be Hannaford's.
Right.
It's only 3 miles from my house, but I can't walk or bike there, I'll get killed. So, you know, we've got to kind of keep that in mind too as we move along as a town.
I live over off of Route 1 and getting here, I could get killed. I've ridden my bike here twice to give blood and, you know,
Oh, yeah,
I
know.
And you
There's
have
a
to
back
back
right
lane
there.
if it stops.
All the places you could die in Scarborough.
Just on the issue of transportation, there's a lot of stuff underway. I mean, you see what's happening now. There's 3 years of work planned, you know, beyond that. Angela Blanchette is nodding her head in the back. She did a great job last year. We put together a part of our website that shows upcoming work, town sponsored and also private investment. I think we need to take the next step and really talk about what the impact of that is. It simply is talking about a construction project at this intersection or along this segment of road, but talk about what improvements it will bring and what connectivity that will result from that. So I think that's something the town needs to step up on for sure.
Is there a current publication of bike trails?
If you did Google Maps, go to Google Maps and press on bicycle and it will show you 3 or 4, and that's just a rudimentary thing. It'll show you 3 or 4 levels of trails. Solid green, a dark green means it's safe. Lighter green, solid means, okay, you may have some traffic. There's some dotted ones that go, well, you want to be a little cautious. And then there's some yellow ones that say, you don't want to go up one.
If you go to Google Maps, you have to put in bicycle trails or?
You just hit the bicycle.
I see.
But I think the town
There's
should and will step up. We should be providing that sort of resource.
But we're trying to come up with one for Scarborough.
And Tom,
Nancy?
Quickly, the library is trying to leverage a grant, potentially through the Department of Transportation for e-bikes to check out of the library. So it hasn't happened yet, but we're very eager and we're trying to position ourselves to be one of the first libraries to get that grant. So we are thinking about it as well. I just wanted you to know that.
I just to mention one more thing that I heard some of the groups talk about, which was, you know, benchmarking, really trying to come up with performance measures. And I know that's something that council's interested in. So I would encourage us all to share if you're coming up with some good benchmarking ideas or you know, key indicators. That would be great to know. Some of them may apply to different groups, and I think that's really an important way to really begin to think about the future. It's also on the last page of the comprehensive plan that we will put together some of those indicators. So that's going to be really good for us. Actually, the SEDCO board at their last meeting decided they wanted to turn that on its head, and they tried to make up they were looking for a happiness meter, like what makes people happy in Scarborough, and trying to, we went through a lot of different indicators, and so I think that type of thing is really important for the groups. And I see John is itching to say something.
Well, I just want to, you know, the one thing that Brian said that I think is important, especially when you guys are in your committees and you're very like hyper focused on a particular item. I think it's important to like take a step back, think about the other things that are important in the community and ask yourself, what are the consequences it could have on that thing? It's also important.
Right.
You know, I feel like on the council we're often challenged with trying to do the best we can to move as many things forward as we can and manage those impacts and consequences. And I think having this group always think about that, I think will help make sure whatever the solution is the best solution for the community to go forward. It's really, really hard. And I think for us as counselors, you know, we're always trying to think, how do we manage growth, but also help with affordable housing, or we have a school, but we have traffic concerns. So there's always like issues to think about. And I just ask that everybody, when you're in your meetings, just like think of the other committees where they would say, I wonder what they would say about this topic. I wonder how this impacts them, because I think that's important and that'll hopefully help you think about who should you pull in. I will say, I know when I'm in some committees or when I was the liaison, I was always like, you might want to talk to this group because I sat in that meeting and they said the same thing, or they actually don't like that idea because of this reason. And so, again, I think it's just good for having that cross dialogue wherever, and probably when you don't think it's there probably is something there that should be explored and looked at. So I would just encourage you to think that way and think about, you know, you have a passion for housing. We have a passion for conservation. Sometimes those things are a little bit in conflict and you have to find a good way forward for both. So I thought that was just a really good point that we need to remember about.
Good. Thanks, Sean. So I think we're pretty much wrapping up. I know.
We have one more.
Apparently.
No, we have. There's on the agenda. We wanted to, in the comprehensive plan, it says one of our tasks is that we really need to begin to think about branding and maybe coming up with taglines and things like that. And this is the last exercise of the night. So I have 2 questions for you. One, everybody's got a little note card at their place. And I'm going to ask you to think of 3 things, 3 words to describe Scarborough. And if you need more, to describe what? Scarborough. What do you think of when you think of the town of Scarborough? I would also say, what are the 3 images that you think of? What says Scarborough to you?
Not a very good artist.
That's okay. You can describe it. You don't have to draw it.
This is done anonymously, so
Right.
please be honest in your
I'm
words and images.
I'm going to collect them all. I'm going to make a word cloud and then see if something emerges in terms of a nice slogan. And it's not about economic development. It's about what's the image we want to give? What do we want people to think about Scarborough? I mean, you know, when somebody in South Portland thinks about Scarborough, I'm going to point out Jean Marie, who grew up in South Portland, always said, hey, we used to think about Scarborough as what? Just a cow town. Yeah. So, and that may be what people want to thought of, but that's what I want. I want you to what is that image that you want everybody to think of? That positive image, hopefully. And then I'm going to collect them. Tom said I can't ask you to shout them out. I'm going to.
Unless you want to, but.
Yeah, no, we're going to end a few minutes early so that you can all chat if you want to, if there's somebody in the room that you want to chat with. The other thing is we will get some distribution lists out to you that either have the emails of the chairs of the committees or the liaisons. I'm sorry, the staff, so that if you do want to reach out to a committee, we'll give you that contact info. And I just can't thank you guys enough for coming and sharing your ideas.
Just one last word, if I could. We want to do everything we can to help support you. So if there's something you're needing and you're not getting, come to me directly or work through your staff support. We'll do our very best to help you do the hard work you're doing. Todd just mentioned he's pleased to show people around the facility really quickly here if anyone's interested. We have no time to leave, so within reason, go about the space and it really takes the food. So thank you for coming.